So yes, a very warm welcome from me. My name's Stiramanis, and a warm welcome to you here, but also a warm welcome to everyone who's joining us on YouTube as well. So yes, so what we'll get tonight, if you've been coming to the urban retreat in the evenings, the format tonight's a little bit different. Usually the Friday night class involves ritual, and we wanted to honour that, but also to mark the final evening of our urban retreat with a ritual. So that will be the second half, is the ritual. And in the first half, we're going to hear from Garavavati talking about Padmasambhava. So my meditation slot has been rather compressed. So we'll. I'll just say something very briefly, and then I'll just lead us through the meditation. So we've been exploring over this week. We've been exploring this journey from samadhi to prajna. So we'll be doing that in the meditation today. We'll be cultivating samadhi, so an open, fertile mind. So we'll be just trying to soften into our experience, soften into our emotions, allow ourselves to open up so that we can start to look more deeply at our experience. And we've explored over the last 2 nights 2 different ways of doing that, by looking at the impermanent nature of our experience, by looking at change in our experience. And as Garavavati was leading us in a couple of nights ago, if we really, really look closely at our experience, we'll see that everything is changing all the time. And then Surya yesterday was looking at reflecting on the dukkha, so the unsatisfactory aspect of experience. So the fact that basically when we cling onto our experience, when we want things to be in a certain way, that's inherently painful, and that emerges out of that act of clinging. And the third of these 3 ways of looking is what's called the anatta reflection. So a reflection on the sometimes translated as not a reflection on non-self. Yeah. So we're turning our attention to seeing if we can find a me in the midst of it all. So it's a pretty bold thing to jump in with in a short meditation, but we'll give it a go. The main thing, just to say, and this is really important, is that we're not trying to eliminate anything. We're not trying to, in noticing, in looking at our experience in this way, we're not trying to get rid of a self. We're trying to notice that the tendency to create a self out of our experience is one of contraction and narrowing, and is inherently painful. There's something inherently painful in trying to sort of hold on to something that is fixed and separate and me. So all we're trying to do in looking in that way is just to look for if we can find what is at the root of that. What is it? Where is the me that I'm trying to protect? And in looking in that way, you might just find that if you can't find that, you might just find that there's some relief in there. We're sort of so desperately trying to protect something. If we realise that there's nothing we need to protect, that's a relief. So we're looking for relief. We're looking for even joy. Sometimes you can find yourself almost wanting to laugh in these reflections when you realise that this tightness is actually not for anything. You don't need to do it. If you instead start feeling like you're in a bit of a fight with your experience, just relax. You don't need to be doing this reflection either. You don't want to feel like you're trying to get rid of anything. It's just not going to help. It's not going to work. So let's set up to meditate. So starting by feeling the weight of your body on the cushion or the chair. And mainly we're just trying to let go. Just let go of the need to hold yourself up or to hold any expression on your face. Let go of holding your shoulders up towards your ears. And what happens when we do that is that the spine just naturally wants to rise up. We're just allowing that to happen gradually. Allowing your chest to open. And expanding your awareness to fill the whole space of your body. Just deciding to let in the full experience of your body. However that feels. And bringing your awareness around the area of your heart. And just seeing if you can allow that area to be soft. It might help just to bring something to mind that you're grateful for. Something you've been given, a friend, a teacher. Just seeing if you can relax into that. And you might notice there's some aspect of your experience that just can't quite relax fully, that just wants to keep holding on. We don't need to make a problem of that. See if you can just bring your awareness right into that area. And just drop in the question, who is it that's holding on? Looking more deeply into the experience underneath any tightness, any clinging, and seeing if you can spot a me that is holding on, an I that is being defended in any way. If there's any sense of release, just enjoy it. And if there isn't, then don't push it. Now letting go of any effort to reflect. Just sitting. bright awareness through the whole of your body. Hopefully that was just a little taste of something. And I'll step down now and welcome up Garavavati, who will talk to us about the fifth of 5 figures we've been exploring, Padmasambhava.
So I'm going to talk about Padmasambhava. He's on the shrine here. So you might have had a chance to look at the figure. You might have met Padmasambhava before. But we're going to spend the evening basically meeting Padmasambhava in different ways. So I'm going to talk about evoking and invoking Padmasambhava. And in the second half, as Jeremiah said, we're going to sort of call upon Padmasambhava, dwell on his qualities, and use imagery and sort of sound symbols as well to meet Padmasambhava. So there's lots of ways that you can encounter these figures, and hopefully we'll explore a few of those ways tonight. So I thought I might tell you about my first sort of meeting with Padmasambhava. So I was on a holiday in Morocco, and I was with some school friends, and I don't know why, but as my holiday reading, or maybe I do know why, as my holiday reading, I'd picked off my friend's mother's shelf actually, the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dying. I don't know if you know that book, but it's an interesting holiday read. I was working in a hospital at the time, and it was a very high-level neurodisability hospital. And there were lots of people there who were in vegetative states, so sort of interesting liminal space in a way of sort of being alive and sort of semi-conscious. I don't really know actually so much about what that experience is like, obviously, but I had a lot of questions about life and death and the sort of spaces between. So I think that's what had drawn me to that book, the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dying. And we spent most of the time in Morocco. I was like trying to surf, not very successfully, and then like going out in the evenings and drinking and partying. And it was towards the end of the holiday, and I was on the balcony and I was really hungover, and I was thinking about going home. It must have been the next day or the day after, and just had this feeling of dread that I didn't want to go home. And everything in my life was fine. Like I had actually my job, even though I found it really hard, was sort of like my dream job. Like all the sort of externals of my life were good, and I'd sort of worked, maybe I hadn't even worked hard to get them, but I tried, I'd put effort in to sort of get my life how I wanted it. And yet I just had this dread of not wanting to go back, and maybe it's just like a holiday thing where you just want the holiday to last forever, but it felt deeper than that. And I felt a bit, it could have just been the hangover, but I felt a bit desperate, like I just can't face my life, I don't want to go back. It felt really devoid of meaning. And I started to read this book, and quite near the front there's an image of Padmasambhava, a sort of a photograph of a statue, a much bigger statue than this, but similar to this, just from the chest up, so mainly just the face. And it talks about this practice where you just look at the image. So you can open the book, and it suggested you can just look at the image and just contemplate the image. So I thought, well, might as well, like if I'm pretty desperate, I'll just try. And I remember just looking at this image in a sort of state of like slight desperation, and just sort of internally asking like, please help me. And it's really interesting to recall it, but that's just what I was spontaneously doing, looking at this image, asking for help. I don't know, and then I don't remember any sort of like blazing lights or massive, like I didn't feel like Padmasambhava descending into my life and giving me a teaching. I think probably a friend came and I closed the book and just carried on with the rest of my day. But before the holiday ended, I decided that I needed to find out about Buddhism. And when I came back, I acted on that, and I came to the Buddhist Center, and I can remember the people here saying, oh, do you want to learn to meditate? I was like, no, I just want to learn about Buddhism. I had this really strong sense that it was I needed to do that. Anyway, so that was almost exactly 10 years ago, and here I am. So something happened in that meeting. Something happened in that meeting. And we can sort of consciously dwell on the qualities of these figures. So over the last 4 nights, we've been talking about these figures. They're embodiments of enlightenment, so they each sort of have their own myth and associations, and they have each sort of embody particular qualities which all come from the enlightened mind. They all sort of come from the Buddha Shakyamuni. And when we evoke those qualities, when we sort of turn our minds towards these figures, when we think of them and when we dwell upon those qualities, the qualities come into being. They start to sort of mingle with our own qualities. And it's a practice that goes right back to the time of the Buddha. For disciples that were sort of separated from the Buddha, they'd ask how they could feel close to the teacher, how they could have a deeper understanding of the Buddha's teachings. And the Buddha would suggest that they just recall him, sort of dwell upon him, and even sort of call upon him. So it's a very traditional practice to dwell upon these figures, to sort of call upon them. And we can also invoke the figure as well, so we can literally call upon the figure. And we've been talking this week about sort of whether these figures exist or don't exist, and in which way, like if they do exist, where do they exist? And my experience is that they do exist, but just not, they exist on like a different plane of reality. So they don't exist necessarily materially in the way that I exist, or the way that Stiramanis exists. But we can have a sense of them, we can feel their presence, and when we chant a mantra, when we call upon their qualities, we can get a felt sense of these figures, we can experience them, and we can be guided by them. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to just invoke Padmasambhava before I tell you a bit more about his life. So I'm going to do a very traditional invocation, Tibetan invocation of him. So you don't need to sit in meditation posture, but you might want to close your eyes or just look at the shrine. And I'm just going to chant the long Padmasambhava invocation. Again Yulji Nupchang Sam Padma Kesa Dong Pola Yatsen Chagi Nukdrupne Padma Jungne She Sudrak Kodo Kando Mangpo Ko Kai Ki Ke Sudak Drupki Chinji Lapche Shak Su Sol Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a bit about Padmasambhava. So, Padmasambhava was a real historical figure. So he lived, and he's sort of like half historical, half legend. And he, like all good sort of myths and legends, the sort of legendary part of the story can tell us a lot about our lives, can sort of inform us a lot about how to live our lives as well. So he's credited with bringing Buddhism to Tibet. And the story is that there was a very sort of, what's the word? Oh, okay. Well, there was a monk and a scholar in Tibet, and he was trying to build a monastery. The king of Tibet had asked him to build a monastery. And during the day, he built the monastery, and they'd make good progress. But at night, demons would come, and they'd tear the monastery down. And if this happened over a long period of time, the monastery would get built during the day, and at night, all the hard work would sort of be ruined by these demons. So eventually, his name's Sangharaskshita, he sort of gave up and he went to the king of Tibet and said, okay, I can't do this. And I think who we need is Padmasambhava. So Padmasambhava was living in India at Nalanda University. So a really, really big sort of Buddhist sort of monastery / university. And he was a scholar and sort of a magician as well. And actually the Nalanda crest is on the gates of the Buddhist centre. You've seen it with the lotus. And Padmasambhava means born of the lotus. So the lotus represents spiritual growth, spiritual rebirth even. So Padmasambhava is sort of born of the lotus, and he represents spiritual awakening. So Padmasambhava agreed to come to Tibet, and he journeyed from India to Tibet, and this was in the 8th century. And he tamed the demons, and the monastery was built, and Buddhism thrived. Buddhism thrived in Tibet. And I really, really love this story of like building a monastery in the daytime and it being torn down by demons in the night. I don't know if anyone, I feel like I can just, this is like the story of my life. It's like in the daylight of good intentions and make all these like plans of like how I'm gonna be great or good or just a bit better. And, for a while, perhaps I can act on those. But after a period of time, something sort of, a deeper force within me, probably an unconscious force, sort of tears down all my good intentions. And it sort of takes me by surprise. I don't know if you can relate to this. People look like they've got lots of recognition. Yeah, so it's these sort of like deeper primordial forces within us which actually drive a lot of our behaviour. And on the surface, I can be trying to sort of like manage them and almost actually probably keep a bit of a lid on them, sometimes through spiritual activity, but I'm not really engaging with those deeper energies. And so what happens is, my friend has this really amazing hand gesture where she does this, they sort of do this. So they sort of come up from behind you and pull you off track, yeah? That was what that was. So in a way, that's what this sort of image of Padmasambhava represents, the image of this story of a monastery, and the monastery could be your spiritual aspirations or just your life, like really actually quite simple life goals, like I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. It could be that simple, but actually usually for most of us they're deeper than that and more important than that. That we make those aspirations, but we're not really taking into account the sort of deeper forces at work, and we're not actually engaging with them. So the sort of Padmasambhava's method of taming the demons is a really good sort of map for us to engage with these deeper forces. You can sort of see it in the image of him. So he holds a Vajra in his right hand, and the Vajra is an energetic symbol, and it represents this union of opposites and energy. And I always get this wrong because I get it confused with he holds it in the is it that? You know this? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know there's like other forms. Anyway, he has this mudra, which is the demon slaying mudra, which is pretty gnarly. So he holds it like this, the demon slaying mudra. In his other hand, he's holding a cup which is made of a skull, and in the skull is it represents shunyata. It represents emptiness. It represents when we press on that sort of weak point of no fixed self, like we did with Stira Manis, what we discover, that sense of relief and that sense of letting go. That's what he's holding in this skull cup, and it's nectar, it's bliss. So he drinks from this cup, and it looks like blood. And he's holding this staff called a Katvanga, and on the top of the staff are 3 human skulls, one freshly severed. I like the way it goes into detail about this. One freshly severed, one sort of like semi-decomposed, and one sort of dry skull. And he has this sort of mischievous look on his face, and you can see his eyebrows are sort of quite almost quizzical. He's confrontational, he's challenging. He's not just this like nice cuddly guru. He's really looking at you, and he's got these symbols which probably for us represent death. They sort of speak of death, they speak of change. And I hope Alex doesn't mind me sharing this, but we had this lovely afternoon together, a part of an afternoon together before Alex's Mitra ceremony, where we came into the shrine room, chanted the refuges and precepts together. And Alex was becoming a Mitra that weekend, and it was going to be on Padmasambhava Day. And so we had Padmasambhava on the shrine, an image of Padmasambhava. And Alex hadn't seen Padmasambhava before. We came into the shrine room, and Alex was like, "Ooh!" and then they looked at me and were like, "He's a bit scary. He's a bit frightening." And I was like, "Oh, good." I thought it was a really, really good sign that Alex felt sort of what's the word, like taken aback by the image, because I think that's what Padmasambhava is supposed to be like. There's something confrontational about him and challenging. So I think if you feel a sense of sort of like you'll put back on yourself when you see him, I think it's a really, really positive sign. And I think it's because he's in touch with those primordial forces that we're so trying to sort of keep at bay. We're trying to, well, I don't know about you, we're trying to stay on the surface of my experience, manage everything, and just keep everything down so that I can just get on with my life and be like, integrated in society. And but Padmasambhava is in touch with those forces, not afraid of those forces. So the way that he tames the demons is he doesn't subdue the demons of Tibet. He doesn't slay them. Like, there's lots of myths, isn't there, of like killing a monster. He doesn't kill the demons. He does two things in a way. He learns their true names, which I think is so beautiful. So he learns the name of the demon, and there's also an implement that he has called, it's not here, but he can carry an implement called a purba, which is like something to pin the demon down. So you see the demon and you pin the demon down, and you sort of get to know the demon, you find out what it is, call the demon by its true name. So he gets close to the demons, he befriends the demons, and he tames them. He doesn't actually change their nature. Like, they are what they are. Those forces within us are strong, aren't they? They are what they are. But through, I think befriending sounds a bit too sentimental, but through coming up close to the demons, he gets them on his side. They become protectors. They protect the monastery. They allow the Dharma to flourish and to thrive. So in a way, it's a really, really good story for us and our own demons, our own sort of deeper forces which hold us back and which feel like they're obstructing us, that we can actually, we need to actually come into direct relationship with them and get to know them. And in a way, Maitreya Bandhi says this lovely thing that we need to give them a treasure, we need to give them something to guard, we need to give them something precious to protect. And we need that energy in our spiritual life. So we can be really cut off from our deeper energies. We need that energy. Our spiritual life needs to sort of like burn with that energy. And it needs to be guided. We don't want to cut off, basically. We don't want to cut off from those forces. So it's easier said than done, isn't it? I was just on a 3-week solitary, and I think on a solitary retreat, so you go away to a remote place usually, and just on your own. So I arrived at this cabin in Cornwall. I haven't done 3 weeks before. I've done a 2-week solitary, but I haven't done 3 weeks. So I arrived at this cabin. There was no electricity and no running water. Had some Dharma books with me, had some like good intentions. And I arrived there and I was just like, oh, I don't really want to meditate. I just want to have a nice time. But my idea of having a nice time is like being with some friends, not being on my own. So I was there, and what I encountered basically was a lot of resistance to practice and a lot of resistance to going deeper. I was sort of like desperate to stay on the surface of my experience. And what I sort of did, I think, at the start of that solitary, it's always much clearer when you get back, but what I did, on reflection, what I can see that I did was, I was like, okay, I need to have a strategy of like how to engage, not engage with the resistance, but how to overcome this resistance. So what I'll do is I'll meditate, I'll go for a walk, I'll do a ritual, I'll do this, I'll do that. So it's all these spiritual things that I was going to do. But it didn't really work. The resistance, in fact, sort of strengthened. So I was trying to do like goodly activities that were like spiritual, inverted commas, but I wasn't actually really engaging with the resistance. I was trying to cover it over with goodly activity. And so it was just still there, a bit like trying to build the monastery and then it just gets torn down. So like the Dharma can't take root because I wasn't engaging with the deeper sort of energy of that resistance. And then what happened after a while, when I was making an effort, and I was like, okay, why isn't this paying off? Like, I'm really trying and it's not working. So then what happened was I flipped into despondency of like, oh, well, it's not working, so what's the point? I'm just going to eat my chocolate stash and like read a novel. And then so I do that for like a day or two, and then I'm just like, oh, this is so unpleasant. You know, it's like I just couldn't oh, I just don't want to be here, but I don't want to be anywhere else. And what I can see that I was doing was I was like bouncing between this like eternalist view and then this nihilistic view. So it's like, if I do all the right things, then like a good thing will happen to me. And so I do all the right things and a good thing doesn't happen. So then I'm like, oh, well, screw that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what's the point? So then it's like, oh, nothing matters anyway. Change is possible, but I can't seem to make it. So I'm just not going to bother. And then after a while, that doesn't work. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to put some more effort in. And then, oh, it's not working. So do you see how I'm like bouncing between these two poles? Yeah. And it doesn't have to be on a solitary retreat. We do that. I mean, maybe you don't, but most people do that in their lives all the time, of like really, really, really trying with something, like investing in a particular outcome. Not that outcome doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen quick enough, losing faith, and then, I don't know, just being like, oh, well, I'm just going to have a good time then, or I'm not going to bother, and sort of, not bothering. So it's these two poles of like eternalism and nihilism. And what the sort of Padmasambhava does, what any sort of figure that embodies enlightenment does, is they help us to step out of that dualistic thinking, to step out of that binary of eternalism and nihilism. Bhante Sangharakshita talks about the difference between a difficulty and a problem. So a difficulty can be solved on its own level, but a problem needs a transcendental solution. It needs something bigger than the mundane. It can't be solved on its own level. So the sort of existential issue of our lives, of like, why are we here? What's our meaning? What am I supposed to be doing? Like, am I doing all the right things? Is this right? Like, I don't know. That's like, that can't be solved. We can't sort of time manage that or rationalize that. We need something which is a bit beyond our sort of mundane consciousness, a bit beyond our reason. We need something else to address that problem. So this is where Padmasambhava comes in. So Padmasambhava, it can be like a gateway to that problem, the problem of life. Padmasambhava can help us to integrate the sort of opposites that exist within us. And Sangharakshita, Bhante Sangharakshita talked about this as well. So the founder of this movement talked about this. He talked about, he had an experience of this in his own life, where he had an experience of Sangharakshita 1 and Sangharakshita 2. So Sangharakshita 1 was a monk and wanted to spend all his time meditating, studying the Dharma and teaching the Dharma. And Sangharakshita 2 was a poet and a dreamer, and he wanted to spend his time writing poetry and sort of dwelling in aesthetic appreciation. Didn't want to be tied down by sort of structures and systems. And these two, it said that he experienced like this real opposition within himself of these two sort of fighting parts of himself, like the sort of dreamer and the poet and the sort of spiritual ascetic. So he had these really two strong operating forces, and apparently like Sangharakshita 2 burned all the poetry of Sangharakshita 1. As a way, he tried to sort of like overcome it by being like, okay, right, I'm just not going to write poetry, I'm not going to be a poet, I'm just going to be a monk. So he burned all of his poetry. I know, it's really sad, isn't it? But it didn't work. It didn't work to just cut that off. And it didn't work for him just to sort of be a dreamer and just to write poetry and ignore the sort of his spiritual aspirations. And he said that the thing that helped him to integrate those two parts of himself was visualizing Padmasambhava, which I find really interesting. He doesn't really say any more about that, how that integration happened, but he just said in order to overcome something that felt so opposed, he dwelled on the qualities of Padmasambhava. He dwelled on Padmasambhava, and that helped him to integrate those two parts of himself. So Padmasambhava, he tames the demons, he calls the demons by their true names, and also he dances with the demons, which is such a lovely image, isn't it, of really engaging with those deeper forces and dancing with them. So it turns this idea of sort of like a spiritual struggle, or a struggle within ourselves to make progress, into an opportunity for dancing. So there's something sort of fun about Padmasambhava. There's something energetic, and there's something intimate about Padmasambhava. I'm just going to check my notes. Yeah, so we've been looking at these Lakshana reflections in meditation, looking at these gateways, basically going deep into the heart of our experience, of our felt experience, in order to see through our experience, and seeing these Lakshana reflections as gateways to freedom. But Padmasambhava, the image of Padmasambhava, and the Buddha are also gateways. So dwelling upon these figures, the imagination is also a gateway to freedom. And Padmasambhava was called the second Buddha. So in Tibet, he's called the second Buddha because he helped Buddhism to sort of take root and to thrive in Tibet. And he's the archetypal teacher, he's the archetypal guru. He took the sort of concepts that the Buddha taught, and he made them relevant to the people of Tibet. He knew the sort of gods and demons of the time, so he knew how to make the teachings of Buddhism relevant to the people of Tibet. And we all need that, don't we? So we all need a sort of translator for Buddhist text. I don't know if you've ever tried to read a Buddhist text. I mean, you can have really strong experiences reading them, but you can also read them and think, okay, so what does that mean? Like, what does that actually mean for me? What does that mean for my life? So what Padmasambhava represents is the spiritual friend, the spiritual teacher, the guru. And he can be that for us now, but also we can find those people in our lives now. So for me, Bhante, Urgyen Sangharaskshita, is that teacher. He translates the teachings of the Buddha for our society now. So we have the sort of demons of our time, don't we, of our culture, of our society. And Sangharaskshita translates the teachings of the Buddha to our time. And you might find that here, coming to the Buddhist Centre, you might find people that talk about the Dharma, talk about Buddhism, and it feels like they're talking to you. They're talking about your life, about your experiences. They're translating something to you now. And Padmasambhava did this wonderful thing where he hid teachings. So he understood the sort of the gods and the demons of his time in 8th century Tibet. But even Padmasambhava couldn't do it all, like for the future. So what he did was he'd hide teachings so that they could be rediscovered in future generations, because the teachings that he would have given would have been sort of remembered and perhaps misremembered and maybe even corrupted over time. So he hid these teachings, and they're called termas, which means treasures, so that they could be rediscovered and taught afresh and sort of translated to our times now. So you have sort of material, real termas which can be found, sort of buried. You can discover a real terma. But there are also mind termas, so like more esoteric termas which can be discovered in your mind. And there's this really lovely word called terton, which is like a treasure finder. So the tertons discover the termas, and then they communicate the termas. So the treasure finders find these buried or hidden or secret teachings, and then they sort of reveal them. And the teachings are sort of discovered when the time is right. So you will have all of discovered little termas, maybe in your minds or in your hearts, or teachings will have been revealed to you. And that might be like explicit dharmic content that you've heard in a talk or that you've read in a book. But it might be in a dream or in a meditation, or it might be when you hear a mantra or when you do a ritual. So you might discover a little terma or maybe a big terma. And you might encounter a terton. So you might meet someone who feels like they're translating an ancient teaching and making it applicable to you in your life right now. And so you have the Buddha, who describes the enlightened mind, describes the concepts and has the vision of enlightenment. You have the Guru, Padmasambhava, who gets in touch with those deep primordial forces. And then you have the Terton, who translates that for our time here and now. And tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Bhante Urgyen Sangharaskshita, the founder of this movement. We're going to be celebrating his teachings. And for me, he's a Terton. He's sort of rediscovered the teachings of the Buddha and made them fresh. And he's come up with this system of practice, which we're all partaking of. So when you come to the Buddhist Center, hopefully you can experience the Buddhist Center as a place of transformation. You can feel the Buddhist Center is a place where you can come and partake of something. And there's something a little bit special, a little bit sort of magical about the Buddhist Center. There's something a bit magical about this room. I don't know if you've had the experience of this room sort of changing in size, depending on what activity is happening. There's a system of meditation practice which is laid out for us within this tradition. So we do the mindfulness of breathing to sort of gather our scattered energies, to integrate. We practice the metta bhavana to cultivate positive emotion. And we cultivate friendship in order to get, in a way, to get more of a perspective on our lives and to help us with learning about the teachings of the Buddha and to have sort of companions as well on the path. And even there's work. You can work at the Buddhist Center. You can work as a Buddhist with Buddhists. You can work in Buddhist businesses. You can live in a Buddhist community. There's lots and lots of sort of structures where you can live out these Dharmic and Buddhist principles in your life and start to transform your whole life, the depths of your life. And you don't have to sort of move into a Buddhist community and work at a Buddhist center to practice. The sort of the vision of this Buddhist movement is that you can live a varying amount of lifestyles and you can still commit deeply to the practice. But there is a system and there is a life if you want to live it, which is a really deeply sort of spiritual life. So Sangharaskshita has sort of created that and then built a community of people that are living by those principles. So all of us that are ordained, all of us that are on the team for the Edinburgh Retreat, we're sort of living out that vision. And that is, you can trace that lineage all the way back through Padmasambhava, through all the way back to the Buddha. So when we sit to do the mindfulness of breathing, when we sit to do the metta bhavana, we're touching into that lineage. Yeah, so coming back to Padmasambhava. So I think what we can take away from Padmasambhava, the sort of the myth of Padmasambhava and also this sort of image of Padmasambhava, is this sort of this fearlessness in being in touch with reality, not to be afraid of those deeper, more potent forces within ourselves, and actually to sort of to really touch into the depths of our lives, the depths of our existence, and not to be afraid. The spiritual life isn't always easy. Like we've emphasized quite a lot on the retreat that it's not just about being relaxed, it's not about just having a nice time. We're trying to look deeply into the nature of our experience, and we're trying to overcome deep forces within ourselves. There's lots of forces in the world, forces of good and forces of not so good. We're trying to call on those sort of better, more skillful forces which operate in the world. And in order to do that, we've got to sort of go to the heart of what the obstacles are and sort of touch into them, call them by their true names, and give them a treasure, give them the Dharma to protect. Okay, so that's probably enough on a sort of verbal level about Padmasambhava. In the second half, what we're going to do is we're going to do a special Padmasambhava puja. So we're going to be using more imagery and the sound syllables of Padmasambhava to sort of evoke and invoke Padmasambhava. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a little tea break. So if you're in the room, you can head into the lounge and have a cup of tea and a biscuit. And if you're online, you can also get a cup of tea and a biscuit, and you can have a really nice chat with Suryanaga and Patrick as well during the tea break. Okay.
Thanks, huh? Yeah. So hi everyone online. Hi there, my name's Suryanaga.
And I'm Patrick.
So we're going to talk to you in the tea break. So while everyone's having tea outside, we're gonna talk to you. You can get your own tea at home. I mean, really, you can have tea at any point, pretty much during the class, can't you? But now's a good time.
Yeah.
So we're going to say hi to you. So
hello, James.
hi, James. Canberra, maybe. Shobhit. Shobhit is a regular from India.
Oh, regular from India. Hello,
Yeah,
Shobhit.
yeah. Hi, Shobhit.
Nice to meet you from online.
Christine. Hi, Christine.
Oh, thank you very much, Ra.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Hope you've got someone to bring you tea at home.
Yeah.
I've got Ra.
Oh,
yeah, thanks.
To you.
That's going to be really hot, isn't it?
There we go. That's all right. Thank you. Oh, and many biscuits. Yeah, of course. Thank you. There we go. We've got a nice big bunch of biscuits.
Okay, yeah, you can
Just pop them down.
Good. So, anyway, we were saying hi to everybody. Actually, whilst we're saying hi to you, because there's a bit of a delay between you typing things and us kind of hearing it or being able to read it. Why don't you say something in the chat about how you found that talk? Yeah, what was your response to Padmasambhava? Have you heard of Padmasambhava before? Did any particular kind of characteristics of him or anything that Garavavati was saying strike you in any particular way? So yeah, why don't you say that, and we'll carry on saying hello to you while you do that. So Robert, hi there, Robert, from Elephant and Castle. I've seen Robert in these comments quite a few times before.
Yeah.
And Sanjay, hi there, Catherine from Brighton. Hi, Anne-Marie from Leeds. It's not too far from where you are.
No, not too far. I'm from Gateside, just next to Newcastle. So if there's any Northerners watching, let us know.
Patrick's our Northern representative.
Northern representative
tonight.
Yeah, for the evening.
Hi there, Carol from Hastings. Hi there, Chedrick. I'm going to say Chedrick.
Cedric, yeah, Cedric.
Cedric.
Cedric, that's the one.
Cedric, and I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Nelly.
Dave from Bognor Regis. Such a great sounding place, isn't it? Bognor Regis.
Bognor Regis. I've been on a journey towards Bognor Regis, but never been.
Sounds like, I don't know, something from Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah.
Amrapali, Jaidim, Showbit again. Thanking Stiramanis for a lovely sit, and Adrian. Carl Jung wrote about his number 1 and number 2 personality. Was Sangharaskshita emulating that, I wonder? Yeah, probably actually, because Sangharaskshita had read a lot of Jung, and had a lot to say about Jung actually. Fed.
Hello, James. I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Do you know James? He seems to be speaking to you as if...
Probably, yeah. Maybe not by the surname, but probably by face, yeah. Nice to see you, James.
So while people comment it, what did you come across Padmasambhava? You're fairly new to the centre, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm fairly new to the centre. I've been coming to the centre for about 6 or so months. But on the sub 25 challenge, Maitreya Bandhu talked about Padmasambhava, and I remember the layers of Padmasambhava and
right his robes, his
robes, and how we can sort of wear his robes in a more material sense for us, not necessarily physically, but in the way we live our lives.
Oh, good, yeah.
So I've had a little introduction to Padmasambhava, but it's nice to hear the more sort of the story of Padmasambhava in a bit more historical sense, which I didn't really know before, which was nice.
And was there any particular kind of aspects of that story that kind of really struck you?
Yeah, I think definitely the transferal of mythology into real life. Garavavati was talking about translation, and really I think over the past few days having the initial grounding in the myth, and then the transformation and the translation into how we can sort of receive and act on the myth in what we do, has really stood out, because I find the myth really interesting. There's a magical sense to it, and they're generally just nice stories to listen to. But then I think also going deeper and reflecting on the meaning or meanings that the myths can have, and seeing how whether it's a surface level thing in my life, like Garavavati was saying, or a deeper thing in my life that I can relate it to personally. I think the personal factor is
so there's those different levels, it's kind of like a story, and it's hitting you on the level of being a story, and then there's kind of more kind of deeper resonances.
Yeah, sort of like a trickle down effect of hearing the myth, relating it maybe to a surface level idea that I can see in my life, wanting to go to the gym 3 times a week, Garavavati was saying, but then also reflecting on that, and then seeing how it sort of trickles down into a deeper meaning through reflection and meditation.
Great, Cedric's saying that he likes Padmasambhava because he touches upon how the universe is miraculous and magical, and he has a great presence. Yeah, there is a real kind of magical element to Padmasambhava, isn't there? I mean, well, he is known as a great magician. I said musician then. Adrian's saying that they sometimes think of Padmasambhava as an inner analyst, a positive psychic force that can keep the pockets of madness we all have under control.
Oh, wow.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Inner analyst. Maybe say some more about that. What do you mean by inner analyst? I think I have some sense of what you mean. What do you think, Adrian?
I suppose I would see it in the same sense as I see the other thing, like evoking Padmasambhava. If I was meditating on Padmasambhava, I think that would sort of lead me to analyse the things that I do, lead me to analyse the deeper parts that I could reflect on. I suppose, but yeah, it'd be nice to hear.
Robert's saying, Garavavati said, tame your demons by giving them something precious to look after. What can we give that would calm them down? What do you reckon?
That'd be a really nice question to answer with just a few words, I think. Being able to tame your demons. I think the story of how the demons became protectors of the monastery is really interesting. I was writing and making a few notes and saying that, that you can evoke Padmasambhava into transforming the demons into protectors of, I think, you, and you can use the things that, on a deeper sense, you may think of as demons, and then using those to as protection, as strengths, almost,
That's a fantastic answer, Patrick. That's really good. That's really
I was
good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. If you think of, because people often like to say, especially in like sort of modern spirituality, like, oh, your body's a temple. So, your body's a temple. So if you think of your body's a temple, but your body being the monastery, and your inner issues or your inner demons, so to speak, like, again, a lot of people use in general discourse and like general speech, you talk about your inner demons a lot. So I think transforming those demons, like Padmasambhava did, into protectors of the monastery, you can do you can do the same thing. You can transform the demons of yourself into protectors of the monastery, which is your being.
Yeah, I really liked what you said there. That, especially that first thing, all of what you said, but about you can give them yourself, because, well, just it really touches on actually what the meditation that we were doing at the beginning there with Stiramanis. Unfortunately, we didn't have really enough time to kind of go into that more. But of course, what we were trying to get to there is a kind of death of the ego, in a sense. A kind of not a destruction of it, not a destruction of yourself. Just because that's slightly the kind of wrong metaphor in a way. But kind of losing, just kind of like not getting so caught up in oneself, not being so self-obsessed, basically, or trying to sort of reduce our obsession with ourselves, our obsession with living from that perspective. And then that ties really quite nicely, I think, to that idea of in giving yourself to your kind of, it's not quite your demons at that point, I suppose, because if your demons were really looking after you, they of course wouldn't be demons.
Of course.
Be sort of giving them over to yourself. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It'd be interesting to hear what people thought about the meditation at the start. Specifically, letting go of the ego is something, I find as a concept extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And letting go of the self, because it's something that you build up so strongly.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially in terms, if you think about demons, you can. I think I personally can have a sense, sort of harden myself and form a very defensive idea of myself, and I think that sort of creates this ego. But yeah, it would be nice to hear what people thought and how they sort of.
Do say about how your meditation was. Adrian's clarifying that she means analyst as in therapist. That's interesting. So, going back to her comment there. Sometimes think of Padmasambhava as an inner analyst. What a positive psychic force, it can keep the pockets of madness we all have under control. So like an inner therapist. I guess that. I can kind of see that. But it's kind of like actually Bhante Sangharaskshita used to say this about that's at some point you need to just start listening to your inner guru. So it's kind of there's a danger of that in terms of you just think that especially when one starts to come along to the Buddhist Center, I think while I certainly was pretty kind of had some sense of like, well, I kind of know what I'm doing, even though I thought my life was a mess. I kind also another level kind of knew what I was doing. Thought that I kind of knew what I was doing, and I didn't really need to listen to other people that much. God, it's really embarrassing to say. But at some point, you kind of need to sort of like open up to others. Who was talking about this? Sturamanis was talking about this quite a lot the other night, wasn't he?
Yeah.
About kind of opening up to people who have a higher, who are further along in the path than you, and that how important that is. And there's that sense of like an inner guru as well. So it's the external and the internal.
Yeah, definitely, because you can. I think you can tend to think a lot about your own experience and your own. Build up an inner sense of self, but once you have someone to teach you, and you can have people to speak to, and if you are receptive to it, then again, sort of listening to your inner guru and relating that to your personal experience is when the change sort of really comes, because
that's right. It has to ultimately it has to come from yourself. Eventually it has to come from yourself. Do say something about how the meditation was for you in the chat there. How did you experience the meditation?
I'm not quite sure. I've had it's coming to the end of the urban retreat. I think I sort of had a lot on my mind. I was reflecting on the week a little bit, so I don't think I had a very very clear head, but again, I think I was trying to. I was reflecting on reducing my ego, and trying to reflect on reducing my ego and my sense of self that I've built up, because as we say, I haven't been here very long, and I think it's sort of when I was on retreat last weekend, we talked about the idea of the self and reflecting on who you are, and I had no idea. I really didn't understand the idea of the self and whether there is a self or not, and I just had no concept of it. I just thought people were sort of just talking about it, and I didn't really think it didn't connect in my brain. But towards the end of the retreat and over the past week, I think I've really connected to the idea, especially on a surface level at the moment, I think. In my day-to-day life, and you're reflecting on the sense of self that I've built up and how I interact with people. And I really tend to put a distance between myself and other people. I think it's a very common thing to do. You build so much up in here and you push so much out there, and especially with communication and with people, and personally that's what I found. So I was reflecting on that in my meditation, on maybe a surface level in the day-to-day aspects of my life, how the sense of self can be damaging to communication, especially for me. That's how I found it this week.
Yeah, really important to kind of notice in what way is the sense of self kind of causing us suffering. Because of course in some ways the sense of self can be positive, but or useful at least. Robert's just going back, we have to kind of jump back and forth quite a bit because of the delay, but Robert's saying here that he loves the idea that the best thing that we can offer to would-be protectors is ourself by surrendering the ego. So what we were just talking about a minute there, and it just reminded me I probably should give the kind of more traditional answer as well, which is that these demons need to be given the Dharma to protect. So they need to protect the Dharma. I really kind of thought about this a lot when I was given my name. The Naga bit of my name means dragon, and dragons are very much, I was saying yesterday in the tea break actually about how dragons are, Nagas are there to protect the Dharma at the depths of the ocean. Very, very kind of important aspect. So we do need to protect the Dharma. This is a really good segue, by the way.
Oh, great segue. I'm excited.
We do need to protect the Dharma. We do need to...
I know what's coming.
The segue is so good that I can't even bring myself to now say it. We do need to protect the Dharma. The Dharma is priceless. We do need to kind of make sure that others can benefit from the Dharma, our future selves and others. The London Buddhist Centre really kind of like we say this a lot, it's really powered by generosity. It's really powered by your generosity. So you can take part in the London Buddhist Centre, the culture of the London Buddhist Centre, the kind of functioning of the London Buddhist Centre, the thriving of the London Buddhist Centre by donating to the centre. And what you do when you donate to the centre is you do really kind of, you do protect the Dharma actually, because you create an environment, you're helping to create an environment, conditions that support people living a full Dharma life, a life that is of value. So everybody who's paid by the London Buddhist Centre to work here, I know many of them, and they are living really, really full, intensive Dharma lives. So they're really trying to make the best of their lives that they possibly can. They're trying to live their life to their highest values, and part of that is enabling other people to access the Dharma, to come into contact with the Dharma. And of course we don't want any of that, we don't want anybody to ever be kind of restricted by not being able to kind of afford to come to any of the classes or activities at the centre. And so that's why, one of the reasons why we completely rely on donations, we completely rely on generosity. And part of that will be the generosity of people who come in person. But we do also need to, if we're going to continue reaching out online to more and more people, if we're going to take the Buddha's teachings to more and more people, we do need your support in that. We need your help in that. So do give to the London Buddhist Centre if you can. Thank you if you already do give. On this urban retreat, we're making a particular pledge for standing orders for monthly donations. You can still give one off if you prefer to, but we do really benefit from monthly regular donations to the London Buddhist Centre. It just helps us plan much better. So I think the link will be in the chat, or if it's not already, it will be in a moment. So yeah, do click on that link and donate. So the doors are opening now, and yeah, we're gonna move into the puja now from Garavavati, the Padmasambhava puja. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing. Tomorrow, online at 7:15, there'll be a puja for Sangharaskshita's death anniversary. That will be streamed online. I think Garavavati will mention that, but I'm mentioning it already, just in case she doesn't. Great. So see you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, that's nice. If I can have during the puja.
I only managed to eat one.
Printed extra. Okay, so we're going to do a Padmasambhava puja, and actually this puja was written by Maitreya Bandhu. So, well, part of it's written by Maitreya Bandhu. It incorporates part of our traditional sevenfold puja, and there's sort of added extra Padmasambhava bits. So I'm going to lead it, and it will be in call and response. So I'll call and you'll respond, and it will just unfold. And after, I'm going to chant we'll do the first section, and I'll chant the long invocation again. And then when I finish that, then Surya is going to lead us in the mantra. And during that mantra, do come up to the shrine and make offerings to Padmasambhava. And come up in groups. It's really, really nice to see lots of people making offerings to the shrine. And then we'll move through the puja, and Sthiramantas, you know when you're doing your reading, yeah? So we're going to have a teaching from the life and liberation of Padmasambhava. Sthiramantas is going to do a reading, which is a teaching that Padmasambhava gave to 3 women. And then right at the end, Danutar is going to lead us in the longing mantra. Yeah. And for the last mantra, let's just sit and let the mantra sort of wash over us. So we won't make offerings for the last mantra. And depending on time, we might do the refuges and precepts, but I'm going to see how we do for time, because it's quite a long puja. There's going to be 7 parts. So in a way, the puja is like a sort of, it's a drama that unfolds. It's like the drama of cosmic enlightenment that's unfolding, and the different stages of the puja can represent different aspects of going for refuge to Padmasambhava, going for refuge to the Buddha, and the qualities that we need in order to make progress and to transform. Yeah, so the mantras that we're going to chant are the sound syllables of Padmasambhava. And at the end, we'll let the mantra die out and we'll just sit for a few moments, and I'll ring the bell to mark the end of the practice. Okay, so let's set ourselves up in meditation posture. We'll just sit for a few moments. So just settling into your posture and just connecting to the body and the breath. Padmasambhava Puja. Homage. Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
You who are free from origination and change.
You who are free from origination and change.
Perfect in activity.
Perfect in activity.
Saving all living beings.
Saving all living beings.
By means of great compassion.
By means of great compassion.
The essence of wisdom and love.
The essence of wisdom and love.
With great fervour and fierce faith.
With great fervour and fierce faith.
I will always pay homage.
I will always pay homage.
With Mandarava, blue lotus and jasmine.
With Mandarava, blue lotus and jasmine.
With all flowers pleasing and fragrant.
With all flowers pleasing and fragrant.
And with garlands skillfully woven.
And with garlands skillfully woven.
I pay honour to the princes of the sages.
I pay honour to the princes of the sages.
So worthy of veneration.
So worthy of veneration.
I envelop them in clouds of incense.
I envelop them in clouds of incense.
Sweet and penetrating.
Sweet and penetrating.
I make them offerings of food, hard and soft.
I make them offerings of food, hard and soft.
And pleasing kinds of liquids to drink.
And pleasing kinds of liquids to drink.
I offer them lamps encrusted with jewels.
I offer them lamps encrusted with jewels.
Festooned with gold and lotus.
Festooned with gold and lotus.
On the paving sprinkled with perfume.
On the paving sprinkled with perfume.
I scatter handfuls of beautiful flowers.
I scatter handfuls of beautiful flowers.
Again Yugin Upchang Sam Padma Kesa Dong Pola Yat Sen Chagin Uktrupne Padma Jungne She Sudrak Kodo Kando Mangpo Ko Kai Ki Ke Sudak Drupki Chingi Lapche Shek Su So Guru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Hum Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Hum Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Hum Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Hum Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. Om Aham Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum.
Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru Padmasambhava Hum. Om Ahom Vajraguru
Salutation. Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
Master of transformation.
Master of transformation.
Befriender of darkness.
Befriender of darkness.
You who seduce all demons.
You who seduce all demons.
Into the service of your love.
Into the service of your love.
Grant me your protection.
Grant me your protection.
Give me courage to follow your path.
Give me courage to follow your path.
Lead me to the bliss of liberation.
Lead me to the bliss of liberation.
As many atoms as there are in the 1,000 million worlds.
As many atoms as there are in the 1,000 million worlds.
So many times I make reverent salutation.
So many times I make reverent salutation.
To all the Buddhas of the 3 eras.
To all the Buddhas of the 3 eras.
To the Siddharma.
To the Siddharma.
And to the excellent community.
And to the excellent community.
I pay homage to all the shrines.
I pay homage to all the shrines.
And places in which the Bodhisattvas have been.
And places in which the Bodhisattvas have been.
I make profound obeisance to the teachers.
I make profound obeisance to the teachers.
And those to whom respectful salutation is due.
And those to whom respectful salutation is due.
Going for refuge. You sit upon a deep red lotus.
You sit upon a deep red lotus.
You wear the blue robe of wisdom.
You wear the blue robe of wisdom.
The yellow robe of renunciation.
The yellow robe of renunciation.
The flowing red cape of great compassion.
The flowing red cape of great compassion.
You carry a flaming trident.
You carry a flaming trident.
Which is your victory over time and delusion.
Which is your victory over time and delusion.
In your hand you hold the skull cup Shunyata.
In your hand you hold the skull cup Shunyata.
Swirling within.
Swirling within.
The red amrit nectar.
The red amrit nectar.
Of great bliss.
Of great bliss.
This very day.
This very day.
I go for my refuge.
I go for my refuge.
To the powerful protectors.
To the powerful protectors.
Whose purpose is to guard the universe.
Whose purpose is to guard the universe.
The mighty conquerors who overcome suffering everywhere.
The mighty conquerors who overcome suffering everywhere.
Wholeheartedly also I take my refuge.
Wholeheartedly also I take my refuge.
In the Dharma they have ascertained.
In the Dharma they have ascertained.
Which is the abode of security against the rounds of rebirth.
Which is the abode of security against the rounds of rebirth.
Likewise in the host of bodhisattvas.
Likewise in the host of bodhisattvas.
I take my refuge.
I take my refuge.
Refuges and precepts. Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa.
Namo tassa.
Bhagavato arahato.
Bhagavato arahato.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Ditiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Panatipata.
Panatipata.
Veramani.
Verami.
Sekapadang.
Sekapadang.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Adanadana.
Adhyana.
Veramani.
Verami.
Sekapadang.
Sekapadang.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Kamesu.
Kamesu.
Mechachara.
Mechachara.
Veramani.
Verami.
Sekapadang.
Sekapadang.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Musavada.
Musavada.
Veramani.
Verami.
Sekapadang.
Sekapadang.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Suramarya.
Suramaya.
Maja.
Maja.
Hamadatana.
Hamadatana.
Veramani.
Verami.
Sekapadang.
Sekapadang.
Samadhyami.
Samadhyami.
Sadhu.
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 With deeds of loving kindness,
With deeds of loving kindness,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With open-handed generosity,
With open-handed generosity,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With stillness,
With stillness,
simplicity,
simplicity,
and contentment,
and contentment,
I purify my body.
I purify my body.
With truthful communication,
With truthful communication,
I purify my speech.
I purify my speech.
With mindfulness clear and radiant,
With mindfulness clear and radiant,
I purify my mind.
I purify my mind.
Confession of evil. The evil which I have heaped up
The evil which I have heaped up
through my ignorance and foolishness,
through my ignorance and foolishness,
evil in the world of everyday experience,
evil in the world of everyday experience,
as well as evil in understanding and intelligence.
as well as evil in understanding and intelligence.
All that I acknowledge to the protectors,
All that I acknowledge to the protectors,
standing before them,
standing before them,
with hands raised in reverence,
with hands raised in reverence,
and terrified of suffering.
and terrified of suffering.
I pay salutations again and again.
I pay salutations again and again.
May the leaders receive this kindly,
May the leaders receive this kindly,
just as it is with its many faults.
just as it is with its many faults.
What is not good, O protectors,
What is not good, O protectors,
I shall not do again.
I shall not do again.
Rejoicing in merits. I rejoice with delight
I rejoice with delight
in the good done by all beings,
in the good done by all beings,
through which they obtain rest,
through which they attain rest,
with the end of suffering.
with the end of suffering.
May those who have suffered be happy.
May those who have suffered be happy.
I rejoice in the release of beings
I rejoice in the release of beings
from the sufferings of the rounds of existence.
from the sufferings of the rounds of existence.
I rejoice in the nature of the Bodhisattva
I rejoice in the nature of the Bodhisattva
and the Buddha,
and the Buddha,
who are protectors.
who are protectors.
I rejoice in the arising of the will to enlightenment.
I rejoice in the arising of the will to enlightenment.
And the teaching.
And the teaching.
Those oceans which bring happiness to all beings.
Those oceans which bring happiness to all beings.
And are the abode of welfare of all beings.
And are the abode of welfare of all beings.
Entreaty and supplication. Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
At the beginning of the previous world age.
At the beginning of the previous world age.
In the northwest region of the land of Urgyen.
In the northwest region of the land of Urgyen.
You acquired the most excellent perfection.
You acquired the most excellent perfection.
Seated on a lotus flower.
Seated on a lotus flower.
Great Guru Padmasambhava.
Great Guru Padmasambhava.
Approach and bless me.
Approach and bless me.
Remove my obscurations.
Remove my obscurations.
Teach me profoundest purity.
Teach me profoundest purity.
Saluting them with folded hands.
Saluting them with folded hands.
I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters.
I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters.
May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma.
May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma.
For those wandering in the suffering of delusion.
For those wandering in the suffering of delusion.
With hands folded in reverence.
With hands folded in reverence.
I implore the conquerors desiring to enter nirvana.
I implore the conquerors desiring to enter nirvana.
May they remain here for endless ages.
May they remain here for endless ages.
So that life in this world does not grow dark.
So that life in this world does not grow dark.
Listen. To begin with, pay urgent attention to impermanence. Strongly turn your mind towards going for refuge to the three jewels, and be truly open to the spiritual influence of others. These are the preliminaries without which no means exists. After that, disposing yourself physically to be calm, as in an empty house the raindrops slowly gather. Relax. Do not force your mind or body. Since the tranquility of shunyata is the foundation, by forcefully turning your mind to emptiness, you chase misconceptions. In the thoughts which arise, understanding will come without doing anything. Again and yet again, work on whatever estranges you from meditation. Lay bare whatsoever arises, good and bad thoughts alike. The child who knows his way carries along on the path every harmless thing he happens upon, and nothing that harms him. During the time of insight, which is surrounded by a calm and gentle aura, openness and appearance are inseparable. The 6 senses come forth, though appearance and voidness are inseparable. This is the real foundation, without which no means exists. During the period of meditation, there is not anything. It is simply open. But when you waver towards appearances, delusions will arise. After careful examination, understand not to discriminate, to neither accept nor reject. As anything can happen, peace will arise from within. Even when you do not meditate, for personal growth you need to exercise effort. If you do so without accomplishing anything thereby, Know that at all times realization is your own nature, and from within act for the benefit of all beings. Unceasingly do Dharma actions. When you purify yourself of your faults, realization will naturally come from within. Seal your virtuous action with prayers and a dedication for the purpose of all beings. Without such prayers and dedication, no means exists. Not falling into the errors of excitement or passivity, be filled with confidence. Here, in a few words of great import, lie preparation, enactment, and fulfillment, the doctrine's deepest reaches of this life as of the life to come.
Receiving the teaching. Great Guru Padmasambhava,
Great Guru Padmasambhava,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
I renounce self,
I renounce self,
and the craving and hatred,
and the craving and hatred,
fear and folly,
fear and folly,
that self creates.
that self creates.
Great Guru Padmasambhava,
Great Guru Padmasambhava,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
I renounce gain and loss,
I renounce gain and loss,
fame and infamy,
fame and infamy,
praise and blame.
praise and blame.
Great Guru Padmasambhava,
Great Guru Padmasambhava,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
knowing that all things are insubstantial,
I die into fearlessness and complete freedom
I die into fearlessness and complete freedom.
in the things that arise.
In the things that arise,
May I know them to be empty,
may I know them to be empty,
devoid of true nature,
devoid of true nature,
stainless and pure.
stainless and pure.
This and that,
This and that,
self and world,
self and world,
you and I,
you and I,
are mysterious,
are mysterious,
fathomless,
fathomless,
inaccessible by words and thoughts,
inaccessible by words and thoughts,
coming and going,
coming and going,
arising and ceasing,
arising and ceasing,
being and non-being,
being and non-being,
are likewise a dream,
are likewise a dream,
a mirage.
a mirage.
All things of this life are boundless and infinite.
All things of this life are boundless and infinite.
All things of this life are pure.
All things of this life are pure.
Transference of merits and self-surrender. Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
Salutation to Padmasambhava of blazing light.
By the strength of this aspiration,
By the strength of this aspiration,
may all sentient beings enjoy happiness
may all sentient beings enjoy happiness,
and the causes of happiness.
and the causes of happiness.
May they be freed from suffering
May they be free from suffering,
and the causes of suffering.
and the causes of suffering.
Whatever happiness they enjoy,
Whatever happiness they enjoy,
may it never come to an end,
may it never come to an end,
and may they always dwell
and may they always dwell
in the ineffable bliss
in the ineffable bliss
of full and perfect enlightenment.
of full and perfect enlightenment.
May the merit gained
May the merit gained
in my acting thus
in my acting thus
go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences,
My personality throughout my existences,
my possessions,
my possessions,
and my merit in all three ways.
and my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself,
I give up without regard to myself,
for the benefit of all beings,
for the benefit of all beings,
just as the earth and other elements
just as the earth and other elements
are serviceable in many ways
are serviceable in many ways
to the infinite number of beings
to the infinite number of beings
inhabiting limitless space.
inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become
So may I become
that which maintains all beings,
that which maintains all beings,
situated throughout space,
situated throughout space,
so long as all have not attained
so long as all have not attained
to peace.
to peace.
brings us to the end of our evening and the last evening of the urban retreat. But it's not over yet. So tomorrow morning we'll have morning meditation at 7. Yep. And then we'll have our last sort of closing activity and ritual tomorrow at 8:45. So hopefully see you back here bright and early in the morning. I hope that you sleep well, and maybe we'll see each other in our dreams. So you can just sleep quietly when you're ready.
You want to mention the puja tomorrow as well?
Yeah, so tomorrow night, it's a really special evening. So we've been talking about the founder of the movement, Bhante Urgyen Sangharaskshita, and it's his death anniversary tomorrow. So he died 3 years ago on the 30th of October. And we're having a special ritual tomorrow evening to sort of remember him and appreciate him, to bring him to mind and to celebrate him. So you might be really new to the Buddhist center, you might not even really have an understanding or know Sangharaskshita, but you could come and sort of meet him tomorrow night, get a sense of him and meet his disciples. It'll be a really lovely evening. Lots of us are going to be here. I'll be there. Lots of the team will be here. So it'll be lovely to see you. You're all really welcome to come. And that's tomorrow at 7:15. Okay, so that really is it for tonight.